On 6 Moon 18, in a city on the western peninsula of Trench, a villager sat down at a typewriter and began to type. Something rather strange had happened to him the year before, something which he was still trying to come to terms with, to comprehend even. It was not a specific tangible event. It was simply a shift in feeling, in perspective. He hoped that by noting it down, he might begin to have a better understanding. The perplexities of the DEMA horizon didn't occur to me until my 9th year, he wrote. It was then that I began to contemplate the existential and decide what type of impression I wanted my life to make. Naturally, to fuel my hope, I looked out upon the distance of the land that had cultivated me, only this time with a new awareness of the obstruction that my youthful ignorance had allowed me to overlook. Was it there the whole time? How had I not seen something so obvious? DEMA is the name of the city in which this villager lives, located just east of the port of Vile. It is surrounded on 3 sides by water and on the 4th by the vast wilderness of Trench. Few in the city dared to venture outside the walls. Fewer still were allowed to. But recently someone from the same village, and rumors of what he saw had reached this villager named Clancy, who now sat at his typewriter, and had turned his whole world on its head. This is where the story begins. The story of Clancy. A story which began 7 years ago in 2018. A story which ends in 12 days. As a child, he continued, I looked upon DEMA with wonder. Today, I am wrought with frustration, as I spend each day squinting for a glimpse of the top of the looming wall that has kept us here. It was upon my 9th year that I learned that DEMA wasn't my home. This village, after all of this time, was my trap. And so Clancy began to search for a way out, a way to escape and see the beyond for himself, if only for a moment. The present tense first-hand account that he gives us becomes muddled here for some time. One moment he is still stuck inside the city, and the next he finds himself outside the walls, wandering through the wilderness. How exactly he made that first escape is still unknown. But writing years later, the night before the Battle of Paladin Strait, Clancy would claim that it was Nico himself, the leader of the 9 bishops of DEMA, who drove him outside the walls and deep into the wilderness of Trench. An official report, drawn up by the sacred municipality of DEMA, and therefore hard to consider wholly truthful, states the following. It is the working theory of the investigative assembly that the subject of interest coerced or manipulated a DEMA-authorized bishop-class operator or perimeter guard into unauthorized vehicular passage beyond the eastern gate threshold. At an undetermined point along Tract 9C, the subject initiated immolation of the transport vehicle. Visual records confirm total vehicular destruction. This much is known at least, that someone or something drove Clancy outside the walls and deep into the wilderness. There, he stopped on the road, destroyed the car, and made his escape into the valleys and forests. Surveillance voids around the area spotted him heading into the wilderness, but quickly lost sight of him. Some days later, Clancy's own narrative picks up again. I've made it out. I feel weightless. I know that place had always held me down, but for the first time, I can feel the levity that I had hoped for. It's been 3 nights now, and my breathing has changed. It's slower and more full. It's like the air out here is actually worth taking in. I can see it back in the distance, and I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't constantly on my mind. This new world surrounds me. I used to think the walls back home were massive. These green cliffs engulf me and place me right in the middle. Trench is quite precarious at times, and it's easy to grow weary. But it's real and it's true, and I'd much rather endure reality than to mindlessly be obedient to a life that someone else created for me. Clancy had now wandered far from the roads that the bishops use, but nevertheless they still found him. Nico himself found him, leader of the 9 self-described as Blurryface. He tracked down Clancy on a white horse, cut off his escape, and smeared him. But not before Clancy saw the Banditos, people he thought were only rumored to exist. myths told by children inside the lifeless city. And it was in that moment, too, that Clancy saw the torchbearer, the leader of those outlaws. But then the moment passed, and Clancy, smeared by Nico, was brought back inside the walls of the city and returned to his own village. But this village and the city that contained it were no longer his home. He was plagued by visions and memories of the world he had seen, the banditos and their leader. After all of the endless beauty that I saw out there, am I now convincing myself that I'm actually better off within these confines? I've been here for a few weeks now, and while the routines of this world are comforting, certainly easier than life out there, my mind keeps bouncing between the two places. Which one is home? Are the bishops protecting us, and the torches upon the hilltops dangerous? Or is it the other way around? My dreams pull me from world to world, and I feel lost in between all of it. There is still so much I do not understand. He did not fully trust those outlaws, not yet, but his blind faith in the leaders of DEMA and the strange practices of vialism had been shattered. A final letter from Clancy ends with a single line: "There is still so much I do not understand." And then, silence. There is a gap in his written account which spans a few years, and then it picks up again during the creation of his propaganda tour for the bishops. It is not wholly clear if he simply did not write for the entirety of that time, or if what he wrote was suppressed and destroyed by the bishops. But once again, some gaps are filled in by the account from Voldsoy. It turns out that not long after Nico recaptured him, after Clancy's first attempt at escape, the torchbearer took a group of banditos through a hidden tunnel into the city, and there, under the cover of night and the annual assembly of the Glorious Gone, took Clancy through the tunnel and out into Trench. It is unclear exactly how the banditos found Clancy inside the city, but some evidence seems to suggest that he was on his way to the assembly of the Glorious Gone, perhaps had even been marked for sacrifice himself when they waylaid him in the village square. While at first he feared the sight of them and was unsure if they were safe to join, he recognized the torchbearer and willingly went with them out of the city and to their camps. "They brought me in," Clancy recounts, "taught me their colors." But Nico was not willing to give up that easily. Clancy was becoming known in the city for his first escape. In fact, most escapees at the time were well known, as there were so few who had actually made it out. And Nico had discovered a way to use Clancy's notoriety for his own evil purposes, to stifle the rebellion once and for all. So, one night, as Clancy sat with the others around the fire in the banditos' camp, Nico approached. He seized those near to Clancy so that they wouldn't remember Nico had been there, and then seized Clancy himself by the neck, smeared him, and dragged him back to DEMA. Recaptured back inside the city, Clancy begins to formulate a new plan for escape, a desperate attempt, one which might even cost him his life. But he's forced to hold off on enacting his plan when the bishops lock him inside a tower, inside a room with a blue door. It was there that they made him write his propaganda tour and prepare to perform for the citizens of DEMA. Everything he wrote had to be approved by the bishops, but even so, he managed to sneak in a few hidden messages. It is at this point that his first-hand account resumes once more, although apparently written once again on the island of Voldsoy, a week or so after these events actually took place. We arrived at a blue door. It was an odd contrast to the concrete maze. As I went through the doorway, I found myself in another typical gray DEMA room. The only difference was who was waiting for me. 4 of them. 3 of them were unknown to me, but one was clearly Keon's. I knew his voice. They proposed an idea, a television show, or whatever it was. I had no idea that I was known outside of my cell, but they informed me that I had gained notoriety for my schemes and outbursts. They wanted to use my face for the benefit of the city. They handed me a pen, a familiar instrument, yet they must be present when I use it. They wanted to manage my imagination and vision. Although shackled, at least I could create again. Thus began the sessions. What were we creating? I wasn't sure. A variety show with songs and set pieces? Were the rulers of the stifled city actually attempting entertainment for its people? Everything I created had to be for the benefit of the citizens of DEMA, a phrase I heard often. On the final day, after I wrote the last line, I was asked what to name it. The question caught me off guard. This seemed like a decision they would make. As Clancy began to rehearse the performance, he was given a group of musicians, guards who had some musical talent, to perform with him, but more importantly, to watch him. The bishops also brought in a familiar figure, one whom Clancy did not know they had captured, and at the sight, his heart sank. They gave him the torchbearer to perform with him as a drummer. The two rekindled their friendship as they prepared the television show, but Clancy couldn't quite shake the feeling that something was off about the figure. Little did he know, this torchbearer who was by his side, who performed with him, was not real, but a projection created by Nico in order to manipulate and subdue Clancy, to defeat him. This was the weapon Nico had found to overthrow the famous rebel. Show day. They dressed me up and asked me to smile. Poor attempt at hiding my sleep deprivation. It was all so colorful, as if compensating for the grayness of the city. It was a blur. Before I knew it, it was over, and I was back in my cell. After the televised performance, the bishops wished to continue their propaganda tour, to continue to show the citizens of DEMA that even the most famous escapee was happy to remain in DEMA. They took him out on a traveling submarine tour, but at the first stop, something went horribly wrong. During the performance, we were attacked by something in the water. I don't know what possessed the creature to attack, but it was odd and felt incredibly intentional. Many lost their lives in the attack, and I was thrashed through the bitter cold waves, yet somehow survived. Did this icy cold preserve me? Why was I spared? I am still so cold as I write. Something quite remarkable happened in this moment, something unknown and unprecedented in the annals of DEMA's history. A bishop, one of the 9, betrayed the rest. And it was no random bishop. It was the Bishop Keons, the ruler of the village in which Clancy had lived. It was he who seized the creature and forced it to attack the submarine, in one last desperate attempt to help Clancy escape the clutches of DEMA forever. An attempt which cost him his own life. Clancy is washed up on the shores of a strange island, the island from which he wrote and explained much of what we now know, but an island which at the time was wholly unknown to him. The island of Voltsoy. This place feels foreign, he writes. Nothing like Trench. From the frigid sea, the air here is somehow colder than the water that surrounds it. I have a strange feeling that this island will provide answers. I must go. The torchbearer finds him lying on the shore, and it is unclear at this point if that is the torchbearer created by Nico to control Clancy, or one created by Clancy's own mind. Either way, it was not the real torchbearer. This fake torchbearer leads Clancy through the dense and overgrown vegetation of the island towards some caves, in which dwell a strange and mysterious race of creatures, commonly known as Neds. Their real names are unknown. These creatures lead Clancy into the warmth of the caves, to the fires and the drink, and the leader hands him a mysterious weapon, a pair of antlers. Together, the creatures show him how to use this tool, and something strange happens. Clancy suddenly saw through the eyes of Keons as his corpse lay dead on the floor of that tower, slain by the other 8 bishops for his betrayal. Using the antlers, Clancy was able to control the corpse, to make its movements mimic his own, to destroy the lamps and instruments of the bishops, set fire to their tower, before the connection was broken. What is this thing, Clancy wrote later that night? This device, this gift, some sort of neurological connection or expansion, psychokinetic weapon? This is absurd. Why was it given to me? Why am I the only one that can wield it? Was this the reason that I survived? My mind is racing as I wait here on the rocks, staring off into the darkness, waiting for our torches to be mirrored, the signal he told me to wait for. This entry complete, Clancy then wrote what we have come to know as the I Am Clancy video, a message to the citizens of DEMA that he was returning to the city, not as a prisoner, but as a conqueror. Later that night, he stood on the shore of Voltsoy, stared out across the Paladin Strait, and signaled to the rebel citizens as the towers burned blue behind them. They slept for what was left of the night, and then the following morning, Clancy jotted down a few more words before setting out to join the banditos in their camp. I am not as scared as I used to be. Their mystery begins to fade as a method to defeat them becomes more clear. I no longer feel powerless. I can outsmart them. This new power of psychokinesis worked, and I believe it can work again. I stand here looking down at the line where the water meets the sand, a starting line, all the while knowing there is a finish line across the strait. Their compass lies, but mine remains true. I've left embers of inspiration. I only hope whatever spark was left has grown to a torch, and together we create an inferno. They took a boat northwards across the strait towards the mainland of Trench. Upon reaching the far shore, Clancy once again raised the antlers of psychokinesis above his head, this time to seize the corpse of a citizen, to convey his message to the rebel citizens, to tell them his plan and to ready them for battle, a battle which would begin the following morning. 3 banditos found him there and led him to their camp. All throughout that day they journeyed through the wilderness, stopping to rest only a few times. Late that night, they arrived at a bonfire, and there Clancy was met by a confusing sight, as the real torchbearer stepped out from among the trees and revealed himself. At that same moment, the fake torchbearer in Clancy's mind vanished. Truly, reunited once more, Clancy and the torchbearer lay out their final plans. Later that night, Clancy makes 2 final entries in his journal. These campfires feel like home, as I stare deeply into them, finding more and more clarity. They tried to tell us we were different, but the flame that burns inside of me is the same fire I found on the hilltops of Trench. The banditos have lived their rebellion, and a resistance is growing inside the concrete walls, one powerful enough to burn out all of the stale teachings and usher in true hope, and a path to actual life. We march in the morning. The revolution shall arrive with the sun. I found a way in, a way they'll never suspect, and a way they'll never understand. Everything about our cause is so hard for them to understand, but so close to the hearts of the growing resistance. I can reach them all. I can recruit everyone with eyes that see beyond the horizon. I can teach them. They can learn what I've learned and fly by all of the constructs that DEMA has placed in front of them. We will take it back. The morning sun rose and the camp began to stir. The final elements of the plan were laid out for the banditos to understand, and they set out on their march to the city. They arrived there just as the morning sun was breaking over the mountains which shadow DEMA. They were quickly spotted by the surveillance voids, and the bishops began to ready their defenses, raising up an army of the glorious gone, sending out the lifeless corpses against the living rebels. As the battle raged on, Clancy slipped away from the fighting into a hidden entrance of the city, using the underground tunnels once more to make his way to the main tower of the bishops. He climbed the tower and took down the 7 bishops he found there, breaking their connection with the undead army and rendering DEMA defenseless. But then the 8th bishop appeared, Nico flying through the door towards Clancy, and Clancy had no time to react before Nico had him by the neck. Nico spoke to him, calmly and almost sadly, and Clancy found himself cast into the void, the realm of the seized, surrounded by the souls of the glorious gone, all of whom had died willingly or unwillingly, in order that he might have this chance, this one final chance, at destroying DEMA. And there, lost in the void, the fake torchbearer once again appeared to Clancy, offering him a dark jacket. Clancy looked at him, but did not take the jacket, and with one final push, one final effort, forced himself awake, forced his eyes open, to come face to face once more with Nico. No longer seized, no longer smeared, but now, at last, equal in strength to the leader of the 9. "Hello, blurry face," he said. "Let's finish this."